Hello and welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to recap the 2011 movie In Bruges. So without any ado, let's start the video. The movie starts and we are taken to Bruges where two Irish hitmen, Ray and Ken, are standing in a city square checking out the scenery. Ken seems to be enchanted with Bruges while Ray hates it there. It is revealed that due to what happened in London, they have no choice but to follow orders, stay in Bruges, lay low, and wait for further instructions from Harry. Ray asks Ken how long he thinks they will have to stay in Bruges. Ken responds that he doesn't know, maybe 2 weeks. Again, we see that Ray is not happy about spending 2 weeks, let alone 2 hours in Bruges. To add insult to injury, it is Christmas and there is only one available room in the city. Ken then goes out and climbs up the tower from where he can see the whole city while Ray refuses to do so. Ken looks down on the square and sees Ray sitting on the park bench with his arms crossed over his chest. At that point, a hint to the nature of Ray and Ken's line of work is alluded to when Ken makes a gun of his fingers and shoots Ray. Back at their place, they are really bored. Ray says that they are going to wait for 2 more days and then get back to London because he is really bored. Ken, however, does not agree. They then decide to go out and look at some medieval buildings. There, they come across a film being shot and Ray meets a girl named Chloe. He asks her to go on a date with him and she agrees. The scene moves to Ken back at the hotel, picking up a handwritten message from Harry, which the pregnant hotel proprietress has left for them. Harry is extremely ticked off that Ray and Ken were not in when he called. Ray comes home and makes little effort to be quiet and not awaken Ken. He clearly wants to tell Ken all about his night and his planned date with Chloe the next evening, and Ken clearly wants to go back to sleep. Ken tells Ray that Harry called and he will call again the next evening. Ray suggests it isn't necessary for both of them to be there, and considering he already has a date, Ken should wait by the phone and let Ray go out with Chloe. Ken agrees as long as in exchange they go sightseeing during the day. The next day, Ken and Ray are touring an old church. Ken is giving Ray the history of the church, including the fact that some part of the church behind the altar is so old it may have been touched by God, and touching it would be like touching God himself. Ray walks out and sits on a bench. Across the street, he sees Jimmy the dwarf from the movie set and waves to him enthusiastically. Jimmy doesn't acknowledge him, leaving Ray annoyed. This is when the scene flashes back to the incident in London. Ray is sitting in a confessional admitting to a priest that he is a hitman and he kills only for money. Not for revenge or out of anger, just for money. The priest, who is quite dismayed by this confession, asks Ray who he killed and Ray replies, "You," and shoots him. The priest stumbles out of the confessional and manages to make his way to the doorway into the church itself, where Ray shoots several more bullets into his back. Before falling dead to the floor, the priest faintly says, "A little boy." Ray looks past the dead priest on the floor and to his horror sees a young boy, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, still kneeling in prayer with a clean but blood-filled bullet hole through his otherwise pristine forehead. The kid also dies. This is the incident that drove Harry to send Ken and Ray to Bruges to lay low. That night, Ray goes on his date with Chloe and they get to know each other better. When Chloe goes to the bathroom, Ray gets into a fight with a couple and hits the woman. Chloe gets back and kisses him. Back at her apartment, Ray and Chloe are very close to having sex when Chloe's boyfriend and co-conspirator appears behind Ray with a gun to his head. Ray realizes he has been scammed. Chloe admits she and Eric have a habit of robbing tourists. Ray is pissed off because it's been months since he's had sex. It turns out that she did not actually want to rob Ray, but Eric does. Ray, however, takes the gun from him and shoots him. Chloe takes him to the hospital, but before she leaves, she tells Ray to call her. In the meantime, Ken is at the hotel when Harry calls. Not wanting to tell Harry that Ray is on a date, Ken pretends Ray is there. Harry asks Ken if Ray likes Bruges as much as they do, and Ken begins to tell Harry that Ray isn't as charmed with the place, much to Harry's disapproval. Ken recovers quickly and makes up a story about Ray walking through the city in a fog and saying something like, "It's like living a dream," which pleases Harry very much because Harry just wants Ray to experience something beautiful because he was a good kid. It turns out that Harry wants to kill Ray. Harry makes it clear that Ken must kill Ray because Ray killed the boy, accidentally or not. He does not want to do this, knowing full well how stricken Ray is and feeling like Ray can redeem himself. Harry informs Ken that since they were sent to Bruges without weapons, arrangements have been made for a gun to be picked up at a contact's house in Bruges. That night, Ray and Ken get wasted along with Jimmy and his girlfriend. In the morning, Ken wakes up early and goes out to get the gun. Ken takes the gun and goes back to the apartment where the proprietress greets him in the lobby. He learns that Ray has gone to the park. Ken rushes to the park and sees Ray sitting on a bench by a playground. Ken reluctantly readies his gun and walks up behind Ray, aiming to shoot him, when Ray puts his own gun to his own head. Realizing Ray is about to kill himself, Ken rushes forward and stops him just in time. A surprised Ray turns around, sees Ken's gun, and realizes Ken was just about to kill him. Each one wonders aloud what the other was about to do, and it's obvious to both that Ken doesn't want to kill Ray or see him kill himself. Ray breaks down. Ken tells Ray to get on a train, leave Bruges, and start over, that Ray is no use to anybody dead. Ken explains what Harry is up to, including the fact that he sent them to Bruges because he wanted Ray to have a vacation in a nice place before he died. Ken then gives Ray some money and puts him on a train to another city, while confiscating his gun to prevent a further suicide attempt. Ken reports the truth back to Harry, who immediately sets out for Bruges, enraged at their disobedience. He picks up a gun at his man Yuri's place, and Eric, Yuri's son, learns of his intention. On the train, Ray is identified by the Canadian couple he assaulted in the restaurant and is escorted by the police back to Bruges. Chloe bails him out, and the two share a drink on the market square beneath the belfry of Bruges. Harry arrives in Bruges and rushes through the streets towards Ray's hotel, but spots Ken sitting outside a cafe. As the two have a drink, Harry boasts that if he himself had killed a child, he would have immediately taken his own life. Ken argues that Ray has the capacity to change and deserves a chance at redemption. Harry is unconvinced, so Ken suggests they ascend the bell tower. At the top, Harry pulls his handgun on Ken, but Ken refuses to resist. Confused, Harry cannot bring himself to kill Ken, so he shoots him in the leg as punishment for not killing Ray. Seeing Ray at the square, Eric climbs the tower to inform Harry, who is helping Ken down the tower. Ken tries to disarm Harry, who shoots him in the neck and rushes down. Bleeding heavily, Ken drags himself back to the top of the tower and jumps into the square. Ray rushes to Ken's mangled body and learns of Harry's arrival. Just before he dies, Ken tells him to take his gun, but it has been broken in the fall. Harry chases Ray to the hotel. Marie, the pregnant owner, refuses Harry entry, even when he draws his gun. To protect the owner and her unborn child, Harry and Ray agree to continue the chase on the canal, and Ray, armed with Eric's loaded gun, jumps onto a passing barge but loses the gun. Harry wounds Ray with a shot from a distance. Ray staggers onto the street where Jimmy's film is shooting. Harry catches up and repeatedly shoots Ray until he collapses. One of the bullets hits Jimmy costumed as a schoolboy, blowing his head apart. Mistakenly believing that he has killed a child, Harry, despite protest from Ray, kills himself. Ray is carried past Chloe, Marie, and Eric into an ambulance, and that's where the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed this video. Do give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos like this. See you later.